Alright, so for this video, I am going to be talking about the main reasons why I believe they put truth in movies, right? And there's six main reasons that I want to talk about in this video. But the first main reason why I think they put truth in movies and they do soft, so sort of disclosure, is that I believe that they do this primarily to discredit true information. What they do in this reality, because we live in a reality that is inverted, we live in an inverted realm. And so one of the things that they do is they lie to you on the news. The institutions that are supposed to be the ones telling you the truth, they're the ones lying to you, and they tell you the truth in movies. And this is because they want you to associate truth with fiction, and they want you to believe in lies. So what they do is they put true ideas into the movies in order to discredit them in the minds of the masses. And especially, like, the more ridiculous it's depicted as, the more ridiculous the movie is, the more that idea is discredited. And so anytime you try to talk about certain ideas, people say, oh, it's just a movie, bro, it's just a movie, and they give you the fluoride stare. That's usually what happens. Anytime you try to talk about certain ideas or certain concepts, as it relates to truth being in movies, the soft disclosure stuff, the predictive programming stuff, they say, oh, why would they do that? That's stupid. You're seeing patterns that aren't there. So that's one of the main reasons why they put truth in movies, is because they want to discredit certain ideas and certain ways of thinking by putting them into the movies in order to make it seem like a fictional thing that can never happen in real life. Okay, so that's the first reason. Right, but the second reason why I think that the truth makes it into the movies is because I believe that the collective consciousness of humanity is attracted to certain tropes, it's attracted to certain concepts. Because I think that, subconsciously, I think that, whether it's the artists or the creatives that are behind certain movies or certain pieces of fiction, or whether it's, the people watching it, like, why is it that certain, pieces of media get popular, right? I think that certain tropes and certain motifs in the movies are attractive. They're sort of attractive to us, or we're drawn towards certain tropes because we subconsciously know them to be true. And one of the biggest examples of this that I notice, in terms of the tropes, is the little green men trope. Like, whenever people talk about aliens, usually they talk about them as little green men, which is related to, like, the Vril lizards, right? Because they're literally little green men. But then you also have, like, the way that aliens are depicted is they're typically depicted with green skin and like a reptilian slit eye. So that's another trope that is very common. And this also reminds me of this character in the DC Comics universe called Martian Manhunter, who, he has green skin and he's able to shapeshift in order to blend in with human society. And this is also related to, the fact that, like, another common trope when it comes to the alien stuff is that you also have Martians invading the Earth. That is also another very common sort of trope that I notice, is that it's always, beings from Mars for some reason. And of course, if you look at the Kyle Odom, information, if you look at the Kyle Odom situation, whenever he talks about the reptilians, he says that these reptilians are Martian. Okay, so there are certain tropes that are in the media that we're sort of drawn towards because of the fact that we subconsciously know that there's truth to it. And I believe that this same, attraction to the tropes because of their truth, I think that this is also the case, with superpowers and magic. I think that magic powers and superpowers are attractive to the majority of people because we subconsciously know that we're supposed to be able to have magic. We're supposed to be able to have, psychic abilities and superpowers and all this other stuff. Like, why is that so popular? Is because I think that, this idea that humanity has untapped potential, especially when it comes to, like, the genetics, right? That this is something that is emphasized in things like the X-Men, for example, which is this idea that there's untapped potential in the human genetics, which is very true. I do think that, like, the Archons, or like the reptilian sort of class that is, infiltrating this planet, I do think that they've put stuff, I wouldn't say that they've put stuff, but they've deactivated certain gene expressions to reduce our psychic ability, right? Because if you look at the 97%, junk DNA that supposedly there's 97% of the human genome, that doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anything, and it's supposedly junk DNA. But I think that code, contains the genetic code for psychic abilities, among other things. I also think that they've, manipulated the genetics in order to shorten the human lifespan. I think shortening the human lifespan is one of the ways that this realm works. It's one of the ways that this realm maintains the sort of cyclical structure, is that nobody ever lives long enough to see the repeating cycles of history. And so there is this sort of, miniature samsara that happens where, whenever someone gets old enough to see what's going on, their body is already shot, their body is already basically useless. And then, of course, you have the disconnect between, different generations of people where, where what they do is they disconnect the different generations of people so that the knowledge doesn't get passed down. And, nobody learns from the repeating sort of cycles of history because, everyone's, nobody ever lives long enough to actually see the repeating cycles of history, that the generations of people are disconnected from one another. And then, of course, in a human lifespan, we're always kept busy for the majority of our lifespan. And so what happens is, like, whenever you finally see what's going on, and whenever whenever you finally stand still enough and start to question everything, a lot of times, most of the time, people are too old to actually do anything about it. And so they realize the scam of this sort of realm too late. And so I just think that that's one of the things that they've done to the human genetics, is that they've shortened our lifespan, even though we should be, I believe that in our natural state, I think that we should be living like Viltrumites. Okay. I think that we should have, Viltrumite lifespans. 100 years is nothing. Okay. 100 years is basically nothing. People say that it's a long life, but it's basically nothing. Right, it's not long enough to master one skill, and yet again, it's too short to actually know, what's really going on in this planet. And like, studying the repeating cycles of history, and you look at stuff like the Matrix resets, you look at the stuff like the insane asylums, where they basically lock up the people who remember the previous version of the Matrix, and they program the next generation of people on the orphan trains with the official narrative of what history is according to the archons, according to their narrative of what history is, right? So I do think that, going back to my original point, is that the second reason they put stuff in the movies is that our consciousness, our collective consciousness, is attracted to certain tropes because of the fact that we know them to be true. And so I do think that there are a lot of artists and a lot of creatives and a lot of authors that, like, they basically put this stuff not because they consciously know it to be true, but because subconsciously there's something that the human spirit wants to express, right? And so I think that, a lot of the tropes, like, yet again, like magical abilities, superpowers, living a long lifespan, right? A lot of tropes make it, a lot of tropes survive because we subconsciously know them to be true. And I think that, with psychic abilities, with superpowers, I mean, all you need to do is, research Project Stargate, research remote viewing, and, it's if you look into basic parapsychology stuff, it is very obvious that psychic abilities are real, but for some reason we have a reduced ability to tap into these faculties that I think that we should have naturally. And I think that, because of the fact that we believe that, we know that we should be able to do these things, we know that we should be able to have magic, we know that we should be able to, freely go into other dimensions. I think that that's why a lot of these sort of tropes, or a lot of these pieces of fiction, are so captivating to us, because we know those things to be true. But that's the second reason. But the third reason, and this is the comment that kind of inspired me to create this video, which is that one of you guys left a comment in my previous video that said, do you think that some artists or creatives do this as a form of quiet protest? Right, and I definitely think that, some creatives, some directors, or the people who are involved in the creation of these movies and in these fictional pieces, I do think that there is definitely a possibility that some of them put the truth in movies as almost as a form of, like, protest against the system, or trying to get the truth out there to people. And I think that John Carpenter and the movie They Live is the most obvious example of this. I definitely think that They Live was it's a documentary. Okay, They Live is a documentary, and I definitely think that John Carpenter might have done that as a form of protest, where it's like he knows this stuff, but he knows that no one's going to believe him, so he puts it in the movies, and so that people can notice the pattern maybe later on, right? Which I definitely think that that's one of the reasons why truth makes it into movies, is because there might be people who are in the system, but they're disgruntled with the system, and so they put the truth in movies as a way to try to get the information out there. I think that's definitely one reason that they put truth in the movies. But if you want to go to the opposite direction, this is where we get into predictive programming, right? Well, in predictive programming, the goal of predictive programming is to basically put stuff in the movies in order to familiarize the public with certain concepts. That's the reason why they put, like, what do they plan to do? The stuff that they plan to, like, stuff like 9/11, like all of the predictive programming, whenever it came to 9/11 and also COVID, You look at all that stuff, the reason why they put it in the movies is because they want to familiarize the public subconsciously with the stuff that they want to do. And of course, the mind goes towards what's most familiar, right? And it sort of reminds me of this quote from the Joker in the Dark Knight movie, right? Which is, nobody panics when everything goes according to plan, even if the plan's horrifying. Okay, and that's the basic sort of science or logic of predictive programming, is that nobody panics when everything goes according to plan. It doesn't matter how horrible the plan is. It doesn't matter how bad the situation is, right? Because of the fact that it's a plan, because of the fact that it feels familiar, nobody panics, and so people go along with the plan that the elites have for the masses, because of the fact that they've seen it in movies 1,000 times, and so they're familiar with it, and so they don't. Even though it's scary, even though the plan's horrifying, they go according to that plan because they're familiar with it, and that's the goal of predictive programming, is they want to familiarize people with a certain timeline. If you want to talk about it in like a timeline kind of a sense, right? Like they want to familiarize people with a certain timeline. They want to essentially tap into the collective manifesting power of humanity, and they want to move the timeline towards a certain direction, and they do this through image magic. They do this by essentially casting certain imagery onto the public eye, and so subconsciously that they assume that that's how the future is going to go, and so they go along with it. Okay, so that's the predictive programming angle, and that's the fourth reason, right? The fifth reason that is promoted, that is sort of proposed by a lot of people, is that they put the truth in movies in order to essentially karmically absolve themselves, right? That they put the truth in movies so that basically, they're absolved of karma, they're absolved of karmic consequence, and basically, if you don't stop them, then that means it's your fault because they showed you what they were going to do before it happens. Now, I'm not sure about this particular line of reasoning, because I definitely think that karma in its traditional sense, where it's about rewards and punishments based on whether or not you're a good or a bad person. I definitely think that that's fake and gay. I think that karma works in reverse. In this reality, it's very obvious that evil people tend to win and good people tend to be trampled upon like doormats, right? So I'm not really sure about this line of reasoning, but I definitely think that some of the elites, believe in this reasoning, that basically like they believe that if they tell you what's going to happen before they do it, then that means it's your fault, and that means that you deserve to be conquered, you deserve to be ruled over because they told you what they were going to do and you didn't stop them. So now the karma's on you. And so that's one of the beliefs that a lot of people talk about, and this is like the whole revelation of the method, is like they're showing you, what they're going to do. They're showing you what's happening before they do it, so that they can essentially do it consequence free. They can do it without karmic consequence, in order to sort of get away with it. So that's the fifth reason that is sort of proposed. I think that karma's fake and gay. I don't really think that the karma stuff pans out in the real world. I definitely think that there's a lot of evil people that get away with stuff like. I mean, think about it this way: like, there's a lot of people that rob other people, and they don't tell them before it's going to happen. They just do it, and then they get away with it. But I definitely think that sometimes the elites themselves might believe that this is the case, and so I think that they might put that stuff in the movies because they believe that it absolves themselves of karma if they show you what they're going to do before they do it, right? But that's the fifth reason, right? And the sixth reason that they do it, and I think that this is one of the big reasons why they put stuff into the movies, is that they do it because of the fact that they're mocking the goys. Basically, it's this idea of like, oh, it's right in front of their face, and they don't even know it, right? And this is one of the things about the psychology of psychopathic people, the psychology of psychopaths, right? And especially if you look at like pathological liars, right? Like they love to lie about random things in order to see how much they can get away with. And this is the same thing with getting away with doing evil things, getting away with doing evil deeds. Okay, is that they love to see how much they can get away with by putting it in your face. It's like, yet again, it's right in front of their face, and they don't even know it. Right, so I think that that's the reason why they put stuff in the movies, or one of the big reasons, in my opinion, why they put stuff in the movies, is because they love the idea that it's right in front of your face and nobody's doing anything about it. And I think this is the reason why they release stuff like the Epstein files. Right, this is the reason why they did that stuff, is they love to see. They love to sort of push the envelope of how much they can get away with in a way that is sort of really exposed, to the point where it's almost basically in plain sight and nobody's doing anything about it. They love to do that as sort of a power trip. They love to see how much they can get away with. They love to mock people, with having it right in front of their face and they don't even know it. Like, and that's one of the things that psychopaths will do is they love to see how much they can shove in your face and to still get away with it. And so I think that that's one of the main reasons why they put stuff in the movies. But yeah, those are the 6 reasons, right? That I believe the truth makes it into the movies. Number one is that they put truth in movies in order to discredit the truth by associating truth with fiction. Number two is that the collective unconscious is attracted to certain tropes, certain motifs, because subconsciously we know certain things to be true. Number three, like the number 3 reason why they put truth in movies is because some creatives and some directors, they do it as a form of protest, against the system. They might be a part of the system and they do it as a form of protest. Number 4 is they do it for predictive programming. They want to accustom you to a certain timeline. They want to accustom you to a certain way that future events might unfold, so that it's easier to manifest that sort of timeline because you're familiarized with it. They love to make the public familiar with certain events or certain ways, of doing things, certain timelines, so that timeline is easier to manifest. Right, so that's the 4th reason. The 5th reason is they do it in order to try to absolve themselves of karmic consequence. Right, instead of them getting karma, the karma's on you. Basically, that's their belief. Right, yet again, I'm not really sure about that reason, but I definitely think that there are some elites that believe that if they put stuff in movies that they essentially absolve themselves of karmic consequence, that they no longer have bad karma because now it's on you to stop them. Right, that's one of the reasons why they put stuff in the movies, is because they believe that they'll be able to avoid negative consequences for their evil. Right, and number 6 is they love to do it in order to mock people and in order to see how much they can get away with. Right, so those are the main reasons why I think they put truth in movies. Right, but yeah, that's the video.